greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure.
Just a little message to the viewers before the show starts. This was Nate and I's first long-distance interview. It was our first time using Skype and this new program to record. So there was a few kinks that needed to be worked out. You know, you might hear some slight echoes and changes in the volume. We apologize for any auditory inconvenience, and by the next show, we would have cleaned up some. Thank you, and enjoy.
Welcome, reality lovers, to another episode of A Dose of Reality. I'm Christopher Green with my main slice here, Nathan. Hello. And we got an excellent show for you here today. We have two lovely ladies who I met 2 years ago on a trip to Nepal to study Buddhist and Hindu philosophy and sacred art. The first is Dr. Linda M. Ulrich, a dentist, mother, artist, global traveler, and perpetual student of the knowledge of this fine planet. CEO and founder of EverWideningCircles, a alternative news and media outlet spreading the fact that it's still an amazing world. And her daughter, Laisel, COO and EWC Ed founder. We are pleased to have you on the show. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Hello.
I was hoping that you could give us and the audience a little bit of an introduction of yourselves and a background, personal, educational background.
Yeah, okay. I'll go first since I'm the oldest and the prettiest. No, she says. Okay, so my name's Dr. Linda Ulrich, and I'm a Vermonter now, but I grew up in a little small farming town of Lincoln, Illinois. And my husband and I met when we were freshmen in high school, and he was a very, very highly touted basketball player. So our international life started, and our global view of the world started because he was very, very fortunate to be recruited by the University of Kentucky basketball team, which at that point was the pinnacle of college basketball. That was in the late 70s. And so we started a life that was much bigger, much more complex than what we came from in this little farming town in Illinois. So we both went to the University of Kentucky, and my husband was drafted by the Chicago Bulls, but we chose to move to Spain, and he played professionally there for a time. And then we came back and went to dental school, and then we had
You both went to dental school?
Yeah, my husband and I are both dentists, right?
Yep.
Yeah. We'd all our childhood, we had always wanted to be dentists. So when we came back after dental school, we had acquired European Union citizenship. when he played in Spain. So we decided to go to Italy to practice dentistry right out of dental school. So we have this complex life where we were able to travel to places like Asia and Northern Ireland and all over the globe, and that sort of theme formed our worldview.
Yeah, you got a lot of perspective.
Yeah, and we were very lucky at a young age to be educated, and then after that be educated about the world. And so that's my background.
Oh, and then Liesl here. I grew up in northern Vermont and spent a lot of time as a kid traveling. Mom and Dad really put a premium on making sure that their sort of love of the globe and love of interacting with people from different places and cultures became a part of, who we are, me and my siblings. And
pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool childhood. I mean, here and there, like, we almost had to sleep in our car, and one time went, 13 hours without eating. But, you learn to live out of a backpack, and it's fun, and people they can't really understand the experience of being on top of a mountain sometimes in the Andes and being like, should we sleep under our car after not eating all day? Sure, that sounds great. When, my siblings are, 10 and 8, and I'm, 13 or something. Anyway, so I had always been sort of an international traveler, and I was very fortunate to go to Harvard. I graduated from there last year. All throughout my time at Harvard, I was studying, went to Nepal with Chris,
Yep.
Went on a lot of different trips to Southeast Asia and Eastern Asia, Europe, studied for a time at Oxford. Traveling internationally just became a part of my life in school as well, and so when I graduated, I didn't want to work in finance, and I didn't want to work in the consulting world. That just didn't seem like the right place for me. And so I had this plan that I was going to go, move to Nashville or something and work for a startup. I really wanted my life. I studied architecture in undergrad and economics as well, and I really wanted to be able to make an impact on people's lives through design and through sort of understanding architecture and urban planning through the lens of how that affects people in an economic sense. And then I sort of was sitting down one day and realized that I had a startup starting in my own house, so I could probably work on that. And then in addition, you mentioned the EWC Ed thing. We had different teachers come and ask us about, starting up, getting EverWideningCircles into schools. And I've always had a passion for education. And so I think I wrote in my notebook that day something like, I'm not going to Nashville, am I? And then ended up doing a lot of the design for the new website, and then sort of coming on board as COO and EWC Ed founder. So that's sort of my way that I ended up being, qualified for this startup and being ready to take this sort of stuff on.
Okay. Wow. Yep. Well, it's a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you.
That was an awesome and informational introduction.
So I'd like to say, favorite thing about your website, I noticed almost all of your articles are positive in nature. Not like the fear propaganda, mainstream, and even some alternative news sites like yourself seem to spread. There seems to be no agenda other than simply spreading good information, which I also enjoy to see.
Mm-hmm. That's one of our key objectives, is that we are for every man. We're not going to get into the debates that are so complex and so worthwhile that other people can take those things on. There's just so much good and creative and inspiring happening in the world. We just don't need to go there. We'll let everybody else sort out the real complexities. We want to celebrate the ingenious nature of the human mind and what's possible.
Yeah. And even in our writing, we try and write so, anybody can come to the site and find a place of common ground. And so I like to say that I write conservative, for conservatives in Central Illinois, and then for my vegan neighbor here in Vermont. And I think that people find wonder and awe and can say it's still an amazing world over the same exact things, no matter your political beliefs, no matter your religious beliefs, whatever kind of beliefs that we think of as being polarizing or alienating. I think we can all agree that there are incredible things out there. And what if we took time to focus on those places of common ground instead of the things that we are polarizing? Maybe it would give us the beginning of a conversation to have a civil dialogue about those things that are, in fact, polarizing or intractable in some way.
Yeah, and I love how it's not even just huge stories, but you would take a story that's happening across the world, but then you sort of hyper-focus into something that could be happening in a neighborhood that's going on across the world. Some of the articles I am baffled because it's such a, how can I say, a microcosmic story that has such a macro effect.
Yeah, you're so right. And there's so much. I've written over 1,000 articles, and we have a draft, a bullpen of 400, and then we have another second layer of bullpen with another 400.
Yeah.
There's just not enough hours in the day for us to write all these stories. So there's a lot to be celebrated in the world. It's, we're looking forward to getting more guest writers so that we can get it all out there.
Yeah, and I think what's really incredible or fun to do is the writing, and I think something that we value in the way that we write is we always try and answer the question, what's in it for me? So like if you come up
for the reader.
What's in it for the reader? So what's in it for you, right? And I think that question is important because, it's not like we're not just writing about science, or we're just writing about art, or just writing about, space or what have you, but people think of themselves as art people, or people think of themselves as space people. And we try and write so that when a, quote unquote space person comes to the site and sees an art article, we can answer that question, what's in it for you, very quickly, so that they stay interested and so that they understand that it's good to understand how science and art interact, or how philosophy and poetry interact, or, all of these different things that we don't necessarily think of as being able to come together with a common thought in mind. So
I'd like to ask, what was the catalyst for you starting the website?
Well,
There
was. We mentioned that I'm a dentist, and my husband and I are not just like normal dentists. We really, really know and love our patients. We spend as much time as we can with people, and we literally chat deeply with 30 to 40 people a day. And I was noticing in the last 4 to 5 years, people were having such a hard time keeping their head above water about their sense of wonder or hope in the world. Oh. My goodness. It was so hard to start a conversation. It became harder and harder as time went by to start conversations with people. People were just visibly shaken by what we were hearing in the news. So I watched this cycle for quite some time, and I just always thought that there's some way with my background. I've written, very, very heavily written all my life. And my artistic background and my connection with people and my knowledge of the world, there was something that would come my way that would be some way that I can contribute. But I was just content with waiting for that to be an idea bubble one day. Well, one day I woke up at 6:23 for the last time with National Public Radio telling me a story about the latest bombing in a market in, Iraq, right? I just could not start my day and be positive one more time with that sort of thing blaring in my ear, first thought upon awakening. And I left the house that day in quite a mood. I met the most extraordinary guy. He was a tech geek who was out of work, and he was one of the brightest, most genius people I've ever met. And after several weeks of he helping me with all my different technology woes, one day I just had it, and I said, do you think you could build me a website? That's it. I just had this extraordinary moment standing outside the coffee shop when we were about to part, where I don't know where it came from. I have no idea. But I just blurted out, you think you can build me a website? I'm going to write one article a day on anything under the sun to prove this is still an amazing world. It's almost like it came from somewhere else.
So what were some of the challenges that you faced while attempting to get this project off of the ground?
Like the old saying is, every journey starts with, one step. But boy, you just have no idea what the road ahead is. He had been a IT man for a very large auto dealership for 4 years. So he was very well versed in web building and all that. But we were going into completely uncharted territory for him. We just don't know the industry. We just didn't know the ins and outs of how much spam or how much websites are under attack at all times. it was just essentially we didn't know anything about the industry we were stumbling into. It would be as if, I'm a dentist and I decided I was going to be a foot doctor.
I mean, I should point out too that Mom still does not know how to get to her Facebook notification Facebook call, and I looked at her phone today, and she had 132 unread text messages and 10,000 unread emails. And I go, "Did you know you had these?" She said, "Oh, those are what those bubbles are for." So she came in and she's gotten better from the start of this in the tech.
Yeah, always learning.
And so have I. I mean, the other day somebody was like, "Oh, we should have a get together for young tech people in the area." And I go, "Oh, that's nice. Who's invited?" And he goes, "You are, obviously." I mean, I don't even think of myself as a tech person. So just stepping into the tech world when you're not a person. I mean, I barely know how to use my iPhone, and I'm 23, which is unique, I guess. But it's that kind of stuff, is stepping into this world, not knowing how Twitter even works, or having never been on Twitter, or having never really used, Facebook a lot.
But here's something I've always told the kids. I'm not sure, Chris, if you remember, but our connection to basketball through my husband, and my kids all play basketball. Yeah. I always told them, you'll always run into somebody smarter. I mean, always run into somebody who can jump higher or who's faster or has better moves than you. But you're almost never going to run into somebody who plays with as much passion and smarts. And passion and smarts counts for a lot, even with the lack of technical knowledge. I just never thought I couldn't do it. I just thought, well, what comes that I don't know about, I'll learn. And I didn't know the world. So that's the thing. I knew the world. I know how good people are. I know the real world, not the world that we see on TV or on the web or in the 24-hour news cycle. That's not the world. The world is filled with the most unbelievably kind, generous people. And what we hear about on the 24-hour news cycle are the wackiest 0.0001%.
Totally. Yeah, I wish more people got to experience what you guys have, what you girls have.
Yeah, we've been in terrible trouble before, and somebody always comes to our rescue, a stranger.
Yep.
Wow.
More people would shut off the news, definitely. Yeah. But when you first started, how did you market to the audience? How did you build your audience?
Well,
you guys started the site. How did you get traffic?
Yeah, I think that was a confluence of a couple things that were that we started with that were good fortune, because my husband's such a unique, gregarious, outgoing person. He had probably 1,000 Facebook fans of his own.
From playing basketball in Kentucky.
Playing basketball in Kentucky and all the connections he's made and kept all his life. So we started with his 1,000, my 800 Facebook fans, and then our office. I'd been doing Facebook for our office long before dentists or businesses did anything like that. And so we started out with that core of 3,000 people, and we knew it would never be for everyone, but at least we had 3,000 people to fling it to.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if this is part of the question that you're answering too, but also because I've lived abroad, I know how much wonder many places in the world have for Americans. And I was very, very interested in this not being a North American centric program. Project. I from the very beginning invested in some Facebook ads in countries like Nepal or Somalia or Algeria. I very, very, very early on recognized that there are wonderful people in those places too that would like this website. Again, back to the core content strikes a chord in anyone. So I wasn't afraid to just throw this out anywhere.
Yeah. So
that's some good outside the box.
If you want to tell the audience, I know it's up on the site, sort of how far and wide your audience base is, actually, in terms of countries.
Yeah. Well, Chris, you were along for the part of that ride. The website was only 4 months old when I met you and we went to Nepal, right? That was 2014.
Yep.
And I started to write articles from Nepal while I was on that trip. And within just a flash, we had 28,000 Facebook fans from Nepal.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah. They're proud of their country. They were delighted. Yeah, they were delighted with the things I was writing about them and showing pictures of their country and telling stories of the little 6-year-old I spent an hour with in that one monastery that we were in, who told me all about the karma of an ant and my karma related to the ant going around the stupa. Oh, yeah, that's a whole
very esoteric conversation for us.
It sounds like a good conversation.
But he spoke beautiful English, and then when we were up in the hill country there, I ran across all those kids that were headed out of school one day, and they took me for an afternoon with them, and they all spoke beautiful English. So the more I interacted with the Nepalis, the more I wrote about them, and the more I promoted those articles. In Nepal, the people are proud people, and they were lovely. And so I realized that if we wrote about the world, for gosh sakes, we better let the people we're writing about know about it.
Mm-hmm. And we have huge, in fact, we only get about 20% of our traffic from the U.S., maybe even less now.
Yeah.
And most of our traffic comes from around the world. I mean, a lot of fans from Ghana right now, Cambodia, Pakistan, and India have always been great supporters of us. And
we've got
always
22, I think 22,000 Facebook fans in Pakistan. 8,000 in Mongolia. I love the Mongolians. They love the coolest articles. They go crazy over those. My favorites.
Yeah.
Algeria was a really, really wonderful find for us, a niche to get our articles into for a while. And we just keep going around the world. Just pick a new country to make sure we're getting the articles out in front of people about every month. 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks. And so we have this big group of Facebook fans from around the planet, which 180,000, I think we have.
Yeah, 82,000.
182,000 Facebook fans, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. A lot of people wouldn't think to even go outside the country.
No, I think that's very true. I think we don't think enough about how the whole world...
Yeah, we only think about the country and not the planet itself.
I think one of the most unfortunate things that we think of other places, Pakistan, India, whatever, as being so different from us, when really, I mean, we all have the same needs and wants for our family, our children, our friends. And I think, again, it's that voice of commonality, that thread of commonality between all cultures, all people, all religions, what have you, that really is this thread of connection that is global. I think, it's not just Democrats or Republicans for just in the United States. It's really everyone around the globe. There is a thread of connection to be had, no matter where you're from.
And we try and only write articles that will get that. Mm-hmm. Like we have articles we pass on constantly.
And that's what I wanted.
Yeah, go ahead.
To put out in that first article that you allowed me to write was that, we really got to stop thinking about the local family and think about the family of Earth that we are a part of.
Exactly. And, I think you remember when we were kind of, when I was steering you in the direction of that article, we talked a lot about how we had to find a place and a language in that article that would resonate with all kinds of people.
Yeah, and that was a great learning experience for me as a writer, to just get past the sort of distortion in my own self to really connect right towards the part of myself and the reader that, like you said, was on that same thread.
Yeah, we have to do it every day.
I always think to myself, I think whenever I write a sentence, I think to myself, okay, who could take issue with this? And then I sit there for, 5 minutes thinking, okay, how would the person that would take issue with this, how do I write this so that they wouldn't take issue with it? Or it's always this great tap dance in sort of mediation almost to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to jump into someone else's head for a while.
Totally. So I think I want to ask, it's a dual question here. What do you find most enjoyable about running EWC? And on the flip side of that, are there any negatives to the job?
You go first.
I would say one of my most favorite parts is connecting and contacting and connecting these extraordinary people that we feature. We try and I have a really, what's a good word about the email that I send them? It's just a really regular person kind of an email. No hype, It's written in regular people language. Almost every person that we feature, we write them a nice email saying we're featuring you, we love your work, we think the world ought to know about it. Gosh darn it, about half of them contact me back, and they are the nicest people. I mean, people who do good stuff in this world are usually really good people. It's so fun. I've worked with, spent hours on the phone with National Geographic photographers and TED speakers. Have you ever heard of Daniel Kish, the guy that's blind and he uses echolocation to find his way in the world? He can ride a bike and everything.
A live bat.
Yeah,
they used to, when he was growing up, when he was like the media, they would call him like the real live Batman.
Yeah.
Well, I spent 2 hours on the phone with him 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he's just the most extraordinarily nice person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just had, I don't know if you guys are too young, but one of the most famous books of the 1970s was a book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Have you ever heard of that book?
Oh, I think you told me to read that, right?
Yeah. 60 million copies it sold in 1978. All over the world, it's been translated into too many languages to count. Well, that author discovered EverWideningCircles, and we've been working with he and his wife. His wife stayed with us for a week in April to collaborate on some things. He wants to do whatever he can to make sure EverWideningCircles is successful. That's one of my favorite things, is meeting all these extraordinarily nice people.
And that must feel good to be a normal person, following your passions, doing your thing, putting out work, and then to get an email from somebody saying, I love your work, I love what you're doing, thank you, we want to share it. You know, that would make my day, my week, my month.
It's so huge. But, you know, the main thing is that they pull on their pants just like you and I do. And they are...
Again, yes, they're people.
Yeah, they're just like me. And they've got their own projects that aren't going as well as they want. And they've got their own trials and tribulations. And we laugh about it. And that's my favorite thing. The most disappointing thing is this waiting for this concept to catch on, because we know it's there. We know it's for 20% of the population, the English-speaking population, and so that's the most disappointing part. Is the weeks that go by and we see our traffic not change appreciably, and then it'll just make us a rise, and then we'll sit there for a while at that number, and then so that's the most disappointing thing. Is for as hard as we're working to get the word out, it's just going too slow for me.
Yeah, I want to see it take off.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
If it's for 20% of the English-speaking population that has access in the world, then I can't understand why it can't happen tomorrow.
And I guess my favorite part of working on the website is learning a little bit about a lot of things. I find myself in conversation now with people constantly being... they'll say something and I'll go, oh, yeah, I just wrote an article on that, which I think would probably be annoying to other people now that I look back on it. But it's fun to know a little bit about a lot of things in this world, to know that when you mow your lawn, the smell of freshly mown grass, sorry, I'm going to ruin summer for everyone, is actually the lawn giving off pheromones to tell other blades of grass that there's predators and that they should, change their chemical composition so that they're less tasty to little bugs. It's a cry for help.
It's a cry for help
when you smell your lawn after freshly mowing it. It's actually a giant cry for help from all the blades of grass.
Last time I was mowing my lawn, I was having the thought. I was like, "Wow, this is so destructive to the grass underneath me." And then
my goodness,
say that.
So there you go.
That smell.
You just changed my
plate.
viewpoint on grass for the rest of my life.
So that kind of thing happens to us every day.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
we feature these great insights from science. This is hard science, you know. It's just unbelievable what there is to be learned and the perspectives to be gained.
And I think my least favorite thing, which is actually, I'm going to do one of those sort of like my worst characteristic is my best characteristic thing, is I'm much more skeptical of the world now. I'll sort of back that up with, I'm much more skeptical of taking things at face value now. So if I see, if I'm trolling through Facebook on my phone, I read something that catches my eye, now I'm skeptical and saying, okay, so this great thing happened, but how great was it? And, were the people involved really compensated well? Or, really, why are we getting so hyped about this one thing? And I find myself being a lot less opinionated about stuff. I find myself being a lot less adamant about things because I know there's a lot of sides to a story, and that, even the person posting it has their own agenda for posting something on social media. And so my sort of the least favorite thing now is that I just don't take as much joy from, scrolling through Facebook, because now I'm like, is that thing really true? Or why am I, is that taking that at face value? Or if somebody posts something and I know it's not true because I've seen it on someplace else, I have to keep myself from being like, well, according to this, research data, blah, 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 it's not actually like this. It's made me much more skeptical in a good way of the world, and skeptical of the media that I'm reading and picking up on, and making me crave more of intelligent media instead of just sort of a sound bite or, a sound cloud.
That's a positive quality.
Yeah.
Just for all of the points that you made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what Lisa probably could also add to that is that, we really carefully fact check these things that we write about. We don't just pull stuff off the web.
Yeah, we wanted to ask about that. Can you go into that
we have
process?
quite a process, and that's part of contacting people ahead of time, finding out if they're real, or doing a little background research on the web to make sure that people are who they say they are. I almost violated that process once, and I had the most extraordinary article I was going to write after some boxing match.
The Manny Pacquiao Floyd
Mayweather boxing match, right? So the story was all over that Manny Pacquiao immediately left that fight and went straight out into the darkness countryside of Las Vegas and went to an orphanage that he visited frequently. And the story was that Mayweather spent $1 million on champagne and Manny Pacquiao went to this orphanage.
Yeah.
And in the story, which many, many people printed, I found it all over the web, they gave the name of the orphanage and the director and the secretary and everything. So, I was going to write this thing up. It looked really for sure. But then I just decided to see if this orphanage actually existed. And I called, and it did exist. So I called and I asked for Pam, who in the article was the director. And the woman said, Pam? We don't know any Pam. And then every question I asked that was all these facts given in the article, everything was wrong. It was all a big fake.
Oh, my wow.
Yeah. And I found that where it originally started was a blog from Norway. That's how the blogosphere works. I've since learned is that these bloggers, they've just got to write about something about 10 times a day, and sometimes they're completely made up. But then, as it picks its way up through the news media, bubbles to the surface, it can wind up in the it was on the front page. This story was on the front page of the main newspaper in Manila, where Pacquiao is from. Well, it was completely fabricated.
Wow.
So anyway, I wrote the article about how we've all got to do our fact-checking before we believe stuff.
Yeah, and you didn't just go and find multiple articles to, like what most people would do is, okay, this article says this and that, let me copy and paste into Google, see what else I can find. Okay,
Right.
There's 5 articles that have the same thing, that's
Right.
good. But you picked up the phone and called these people, say, hi, can I see, person?
Yeah.
I would definitely call that rigorous.
Yeah.
As often as we can, that's how we do it. We just keep remembering that the people on the other end of the phone are just like you and I.
Mm-hmm.
They're just nice people. If this story's true, there'll be a nice person at that orphanage who's worked there who'll talk to me.
Yeah, because they're normal people.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the way every single project is. We've done some pieces by the ornithology lab, the Cornell Ornithology Lab, the famous bird lab. And those people are as nice as pie. You can just, I email them from time to time. They answer my questions. They
have a great birding app too.
Yeah.
Called Merlin.
Oh yeah.
But I fact check them things with them all the time, and many others. But that's the story with what Lisa was talking about. Okay. Once in a while, you find out this thing that everybody's been sharing all over the web. It couldn't be the farthest. It's so far from the truth. It's not even relevant.
Or it's blown out of proportion by one media picking it up and the next and the next and the next, and so it's blown completely out of proportion. Its impact.
Changed, altered.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why I'm such a nerd about citation is because commonly now a way of citing something is just making a hyperlink to whatever the blog was that you got it from before, and I'm really about finding the original source or using people's own words, and then putting in like the actual like MLA citation at the bottom of our page, because that's a rigorous way of doing stuff. It's a rigorous and academic way of looking at the world and questioning what we see in a way that makes us, triangulate answers and make sure that things are real. And I think that we have to a certain extent, remember that we have the power to check things ourselves, and we have to grasp that power and go out into the world with it.
Oh man, that's a huge point. I love that.
We're all scientists.
Yes,
and some of us don't do it. We don't use actual science. We just take other people's opinions of science.
The reason why these artists have to be so careful about copyright is because people just copy paste things all over the internet. I mean, it's just terrible how people misappropriate the work of fabulous artists.
Well, they can't come up with their own original quotes or anything original to offer to anybody, so they want to use other people's stuff.
Yeah, so it's the ethics. We're going to have to do a lot of work on the ethics of the web as we go along through the next decade.
Mm-hmm.
So you say you write 1,000 articles and you got 400 in your pen and another 400. What type of process do you go through to choose what articles are selected for each day? I assume you have so many.
So our process is so I take 2 hours a week probably, whether it's one day or spread out of the week, I go through all of the incredible YouTube channels I've subscribed to. In fact, now I have an intern who's absolutely great. And I just texted her the other day, like, that feeling when you find a new amazing, YouTube channel to find great content from. I'll pull things from...
It's a reality.
Yeah, there you go. I'll pull things from, incredible YouTube channels that I'm finding, or Vimeo channels, or, it's sort of also a cascading process. I think we're very familiar all with, getting stuck on, BuzzFeed or something, where you just kind of keep going down into the spiral. You're like, oh, now I've looked at this video of cat hats, I must look at the next one. Yeah, I like cat videos, and now I'm going to go on to puppy videos, and now I'm on to like puppies greeting veterans videos, and now I'm on to marriage proposals, And then I've now started doing that with fascinating content on the web, whether it's science content or what have you. A lot of the space...
You can get lost in space real easy.
Yeah, on the internet. It's great. Oh. And so it's kind of a matter of succumbing to that sort of getting lost phase for a while, and you'll come up with some amazing things. And usually Mom and I will do sort of we'll both go off on our own on article hunts, and then we'll take time, we take time every Monday and every Friday to go, okay, here's what I found this week we think is incredible, and then we'll kind of pitch it to one another. And then if we can't really find a great pitch, then maybe we put that in the possibly for the future pile. And so it is a process of, bouncing off one another the things that we think are incredible. And usually if they resonate with both of us, because there is an age difference between us and a bit of a cultural difference, is that they resonate between the two of us, then we usually say, okay, this is a winner, and then you'll write it, and then we write about it.
Now the drafts that we talk about, when we had the old website, when we had the new website built, we only moved half the articles for expediency's sake. Liesl literally had to pretty much rewrite 300 articles.
It was an interesting
from
month.
Scratch, because the photos didn't transfer, the links didn't transfer. It was a nightmare. So 300 of those 400 drafted articles are still drafts from the old website that we can bring over. In fact, Tuesdays I always bring over a new article, an article that is from the old website.
Yeah,
cool. So that's where a lot of those drafts come from. But then we just do the pitches, like Liesl said. We pitch ideas to each other, and then we have a very long schedule. How far out are we scheduled now?
I think we're about a month and a half out.
A month and a half, yeah. But we go way out. We're always 6 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like our process on picking the podcast. I was excited when Chris said he could get you girls on to talk about the website and stuff.
Yeah. So on the website, you say that your vision is to change the dialogue about the state of our world. Could you tell us about that? Tell us about how that vision has developed.
With so many people from so many kinds of cultures discovering and appreciating EverWidening Circles. It shocked the first partner and I that within 10 months we had 180,000 Facebook fans. we never dreamed there was that much of an appetite for positivity. And, that's kind of a kitschy word right now, positivity.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to use it, but I've yet to come up with another one that's better. We all understand what it means.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think that the dialogue is not that easy to change if we all just decide we're going to turn off the radio or the television or the channels that we're watching on the web that don't lift us up. I mean, that's the criteria. I really don't spend a lot of time anymore in my life. I'm 54. I've got 2/3 of my productive life behind me. The next third, man, I'm going to spend time with people who lift me up, or places and things and experiences that lift me up.
And I think in a literal sense, I think about changing the dialogue about our world in a very literal sense. And I think one of the best compliments I ever got from somebody, a mom that I've known forever, she and her daughter and I played basketball together, and she sent me this great email. And she said something like, I love going to your website because I leave it every day feeling a little bit smarter and like I can contribute to the conversation a little bit more. And I think that's a really important part of what, I'm trying to do, what Mom is trying to do, what this website is trying to do, is give people a little bit more knowledge about the world to be armed with, to go out and talk about to other people. So when the conversation strays to the horrible bombing or the horrible shooting, not that those aren't important topics, but that people are armed with the words and with the stories to say something like, those things are happening, but also, don't you think it's incredible that, and then X, Y, or Z. And I think giving people the language to talk about things and to, raise their intelligence about the world up a little bit is really, really critical in changing the dialogue.
Have you thought about doing a video broadcast of some sort on the news articles you have? Like, I guess just a video podcast of like current events almost, like a daily news article or something like that?
I think, so I've thought about that and where we fit in with like the newsosphere. I don't know that we necessarily are news to a certain extent. Maybe you have something else to say on this, Mom, but to a certain extent, our articles can be read at any time, and they can resonate with people. They're not, necessarily a current event. Learning that the grass, is screaming for help is not necessarily a current event. It's just something very interesting and critical to know about the world, perhaps. Right now, we're focusing all our energy on this step, and I think that there's so many things in the future that EWC can butt into in education, in, maybe a positive news media outlet, all those kind of things. So maybe that's one thing that grows into the future, but I think for right now, we're doing news that isn't news almost to a certain extent, and our articles are not necessarily timely, but they're timeless and they're important for people to know.
Yeah.
So we might have touched this in many points, but just to say in sort of one question, you say on your site, quote, at EverWideningCircles.com, we are beginning our business with a commitment to make the world a better place from many angles. So could you describe those angles and what they are?
We are not only trying to make sure that people come across these amazing things that are happening in the world, but we're also trying to promote those things. When I promote an artist's website that does amazing photography, usually artists now will have some kind of a video that they've done in some extraordinary place, or they're also looking out for the oceans, or almost everybody, Liesel's generation and mine, that are creators, are creating in ever-widening circles. Their work is resonating more than just in their own little field. What we found is that most of them are making the world a better place in about 3 or 4 other areas, like the radiating circles after you throw a pebble into a pond. Not only are we changing the dialogue, but we're trying to get interested people to support these wonders that we come across, to help bring meaning into people's lives. That's super, super important in places where life is very, very challenging. The 13-year-old boy in Bangladesh, the 15-year-old, the 30-year-old, they want meaning in their life just like you and I do. And if all you see every day around you is hardship and challenges, you just don't have a broad enough sense of possibility. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do as well. Besides the dialogue, I guess we're just trying to open people up to the fact that if we can write 1,000 articles about extraordinary thinkers and insights and creative people, then possibility is around each of us at all times.
Okay, so just a sort of curiosity point here, what were the ideas behind like the Pebbles and Circles theme of the site?
Originally, I think this was so you'll notice that all of our articles, we have a time written by them. Originally, sort of when Mom started the website, she thought of it as being for people like herself, moms or people picking up their kids. And, if they only had 7 minutes to fill their time, instead of scrolling through Facebook, you could watch an article that was 7 minutes or read an article that was 7 minutes long on our website. Or, for instance, our uncle is an airline pilot, and if he has, 20 minutes before he has to get on his flight, he'll know exactly how long our article is, and he knows exactly which ones to go to fill up that 20-minute time slot. We think of Pebbles and Circles as sort of two different ways of viewing our content. So Pebbles are all articles that are under 10 minutes long, things you can jump into when you have a minute, when you just want to sort of need sort of a little upper for your day. So we kind of see those Pebbles as that are shorter content. And the Circles are something really fun. And you'll notice if you go into them that they don't necessarily fall into one category. Usually they're centered around a theme and not just, food or travel or science. And that was like a main tenet of the site as well. So the playlists, will go from an article about science to an article about education. And so the circles for us are meant to take people on a journey where they never thought they would end up going, and learning about many, many different things on many, many different topics and in different categories, sort of simply because they center around an interesting theme.
Wow, that was an extensive explanation that I would have never even thought of that.
Can I add one little thing? That was one of my originally founding tenets, was one of the things that I think has gone wrong with the way we have learned to use the internet is we've each gone to our corners. The gardening people, they only have to see news about gardening if they want to. The people that just love some Russian punk band, if they want to, that's all they ever have to know about, ever again. We are absolutely wasting the potential of the web is to learn and know and possibly appreciate things that we don't even know exist. So when we start somebody in a circle, we like the one that she gave is a great example. We go from the glass frog, which might be a science or nature lover, might start there, but they end up with the most viewed ever TED Talk about how schools kill creativity. It's had 35 million views. Kermit gets us there. So we start with the glass frog, then we go to Kermit, which is it's almost an art article because it's about how important Kermit and that whole genre is, and then we end up at education.
We wanted to take some time to talk about some of your favorite articles, and like you said, it's hard to pick, but you had linked us to some, and one of the ones I really enjoyed was, what if trash pickup was annual? That was awesome. And what I loved was from the get-go that use of the adverb of away, and the whole idea that we've used. Hey, can you go throw this away? Just that whole out of sight, out of mind topic where. And this is even something that has bothered me as I've gone through my life here is, we just take all of our crap, throw it in a bag, put it out on the corner, and then problem solved. Which is, not the case. And you go and you see these terrible, there was that video of the turtle who had a straw stuck up his nose. This turtle is just in agony, and these people are trying to pull this 7-inch straw out of the turtle's nose, and
and you see like whales coming up on the shore whose stomachs are full of trash, and beaches just are littered with trash, and we just like to throw all our trash in the bags, and then out of sight, out of mind, not my problem.
Yeah, that is really, I haven't used the word as often as I actually use it in conversation, but that article proves possibility. That article, now maybe we all won't be like those people that can micromanage every single thing they bring into their home and end up with just a mason jar at the end of the year. But what if we all went 20% towards that?
Yeah, right. As of right now, I recycle just as much, if not more, than I throw out.
If each one of us does it, that's the other thing I've learned. Man, oh man, people succeed in groups. Since the dawn of human history, nobody does it alone. Behind every Nobel Prize winner is a very tired lab worth of people.
Amen.
Yeah.
And, for people who haven't read the article, we'll post it up on the site, but that family has reduced their footprint in terms of trash down to just a jar. And they say, correct me if I'm wrong, that what if rather than throwing out all of our trash and putting them out on the corner day to day, that we just kept it until one day per year where we throw out all the trash. Many places would be just their living room would be full of bags.
Well, I'll tell you, though, what we would all do if that were reality is that we would change our buying behaviors.
Yes, and that was a huge point.
We would we would say, holy moly, I can't buy this. Think about the trash I'm going to have to shove under my couch for a year.
Even something that, you see these Keurigs who I think have, prided themselves on revolutionizing coffee, but they're just creating more of these little plastic things that now get tossed in bills. You know what I mean?
You're so right. And we've got to look at the world like that. We've got to look at our phones. We don't need to trash our phone if we really just need a new screen or a new camera on our phone. Why isn't the whole world piecing out so we can recycle the pieces and parts of our life rather than just throwing out and getting new on every single thing?
Yeah, and that goes back to the manufacturers of all these products too. They should be ashamed because they build everything to break. They build these cars to break. They build these phones to break. They build technology to break down. So we buy the newer, bigger model, and that's part of consumerism.
I think in the same vein as like knowing that we have the power to do our own research, I think that we have to take it upon ourselves to realize that we can empower ourselves to make better choices when it comes to what we buy, and that's what resonates. In the end, our money does resonate with companies or with just the general economy, and if we start to choose organic, or we start to choose compostable, or we start to choose recyclable, companies will respond to that, and we have the power to do that. Or even like growing up, like we said, our family is from Central Illinois, and we've been eating organic in Northern Vermont forever because that's just the thing to do. And now, growing up, my aunt would have never ever purchased organic, and now she goes out of her way to buy organic. And they're saying if it plays in Peoria, we live near Peoria, Illinois, and now it's playing in Peoria, that organic is playing in Peoria, and recycling is playing in Peoria. And sort of these things that used to be niche ways of dealing with the world are becoming are becoming more and more available to the masses. I just can't wait till composting becomes available more to the masses.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And companies like Costco right now, they're buying up organic farming land to keep up with the supply.
I worked for Whole Foods Market for around a year. They do an excellent job with the compost and the recycling, and if you don't put something that belongs in the compost bag and then dispose of it properly, they jump on your back.
Really?
And when the people come in to make sure that you're doing everything properly, they are scrupulous. And that's just great to see.
And that's part of their brand. So those of us who are fortunate to have a choice, whether to drive into the Whole Foods or drive somewhere else, we know those choices are being made there. It's part of their brand, and the brand that is going to survive in the next 2 decades is going to be the brand that makes us all succeed in a group. Not just the rich people, not just the, North
environmentally
American,
conscious. Yeah.
not just, right. We're going to all succeed as a group, or we're all going to fail as a group.
Zach, who makes these videos. Yeah, so I watched the one where he went to the mosque to visit the Muslim girl. And I think that one right now, especially right now in this country at least, people could really use that article.
Yeah, I think that's so. It's so great that he's asking the questions that a lot of us would feel uncomfortable asking, and I like that in the first one he admits he says I'm like a religious idiot. Like he admits his own failure as someone who understands, going into who he's interviewing. And I think that level of realness is so important in this world. If we all were a little bit more real with each other and said, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing, which I find myself saying, 100 times a day, it makes me so much better, and I find so many more people helping me if I'm real and I say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to learn how to do it. Can you help me? And that's
sparks
not let
people
our
to
ego
say,
get in the way.
oh, well, yeah, I want to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're hardwired to help each other. That's how we survived 1,000,000 years ago in little bands of 17 people, or 100,000 years ago, little bands of roaming 14 to 19 people. My gosh, we had to help each other.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, can I just add something there that's relevant to the two articles you asked about?
Of course.
One of the things that we try and do in every article is we just try very hard to find a better question. We are trying to celebrate people who are asking a better question. Liesl talked about it earlier in this interview. We're all just stuck on these issues that are just so intractable. Well, maybe it's because we're all asking the wrong questions of each other, of the wider world. What if we think of better questions? Can we find our way out of these rabbit warrens? So both those articles ask a better question. What if trash pickup was once a year? What would change? Zach can ask all kinds of questions. Somehow when he asks it, nobody gets offended and we're off and running.
I'm totally down with that changing the way that we, verbalize these things is going to take us to new places and getting over our resistance to think. And we've talked about this in our other podcast that people don't like to think because it takes energy to think, and people have grown to think of thinking as inconvenient, and it's like, what do you mean?
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
Part of that question was, if you like, that point on the grass was great. And I think people would like to hear something else cool. So is there anything just that's fresh in your minds, both of you, of an article that you posted up recently that you could just share or want the people hearing to go and check out that you just think's really cool?
Well, I'll just say, because I want you to mention the camel article. That camel article is so cool.
Oh, yeah, the camel article, yeah.
But what I was going to say was just 2 days ago, Liesl found these two conversations with a photographer who's been a National Geographic Time Magazine photographer for 30 years. And their conversations with this fellow, and it was this amazing, rooted to my chair experience to listen to this professional photographer, tell 2 stories from his life. Now, he gets sent on assignment to cover this or cover that or photograph this or photograph that, but he doesn't get to tell us how his life worked to actually get there and get the photo, and then what happened afterwards. I mean, these photographers have the most extraordinary lives, and there are two conversations with this fellow in which he tells 2 of the most riveting stories. And I think that article really opened up my eyes on the backstory of people's lives. We see these people on the news, the people that make the news work, or even the good people that do art and creative things in science or space. But their backstory is just too many great stories in the world. So that's one of my favorite articles just recently, because it made me sit there and go, oh my gosh, the world is such an amazing place.
Yeah, it really is. And then one of my favorites, I love the camel one because it just opens up, just to kind of briefly explain it, it's a great TED Talk by...
What can camels teach us about fundamental truths?
Yeah, and it's about talking about those fundamental truths that we hold dear. Like, obviously, camels are the most ideal animal for the desert. Like, when we think of the desert, we think of a camel walking across it, usually. Yep. And yet, over the course of this TED Talk, you learn that the origin of a camel may be up in the Arctic. I mean, up in the Arctic forests. And, that's something... what does that teach us about the stories we've told ourselves that we think are so true,
right,
either about ourselves, about other people, or about the world around us? And yet, if we dug a little deeper and got one new grain of information, would that shift our entire worldview? Would it cause a paradigm shift?
I love that.
And I think that's why that article is so great, is because it does make us think about what really would cause us to have a paradigm shift. In that case, it was a little tiny shard of bone that a researcher ran across, a tiny shard of bone that they thought was wood, and yet it shifts our entire idea of what it means to have what a camel is.
Oh, that just gets me fired up. That just
and
that's what we're so passionate about is just. We don't necessarily want to change minds, but it's change is what we're passionate about, a shifting, and we've felt the power of what you're talking about in our own lives, and we want to not share that, but we want people to have that experience to show them that there's so much more out there, and that there's so much more within themselves that is just waiting to be unleashed.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's just so much limitless possibility out there, and it really does take asking a better question, knowing a little bit more about the world, and being open to the experiences of others to really allow us all to have our own paradigm shifts. And it's not so difficult. It's just about being open and real, and asking better questions.
Yeah, we all need to ask each other better questions, and like we talked about earlier, just be more real with each other as well. So this question we have next is actually, do you want to talk about some more of your favorite articles?
Another article I love, and it resonated quite a lot with our readers, was an article that we did about. I tell a story about meeting a young man on an airline that he really seemed to have preferred, if he could, to have been in the overhead compartment. He was so shy and so painfully closed as he sat between me, and we had to grope each other for our seatbelts, Yeah. And on his lap was a book. And, of course, I started chit-chatting with him at high speed like I would. And then he started sort of tapping on this book on his lap. And I looked, and it's a book called Quiet. The Power of Introverts in a World That Won't Stop Talking.
That's me right there.
Oh, my gosh. It's amazing, amazing book. And then he proceeded, after I finally shut up, to tell me how this book is working in his life. And at least a third of the people on the planet are introverts,
Yep.
And we not introverts.
Hello.
Just steamroll. And miss a lot of what the introverts on the planet have to add to the whole.
Steamroll is a good one.
Oh, yeah. So I love that article because I laugh at myself, and I share this book and some of the insights from it. And I think it resonated with a lot of people. The comments that we got on Facebook were very interesting about, it's a sense of validation. Either the introverts or the extroverts can read this book and come away transformed. And we don't do books very often because, books are a little bit like art. It's sort of beauty in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
But that one has something for everyone. We only do books when they're really, game changers.
And one of my favorite articles really is this great article about this space archaeologist named Sarah Parcak, and she is this year's TED Prize winner. When I say space archaeologist, I mean literal space archaeologist. She's using satellite information to look at, what would just look like a desert to any of us on the ground, and using that, very high-res information, and is able to detect structures underneath vegetation. She's able to detect cities underneath whole deserts. And so she's discovered settlements all over the planet that we would otherwise not be able to see because we just don't have the eyes to see it, but technology allows us to see this. And so she's using these images from space to see things, an ancient world below our feet. And then in addition, she is trying to make sort of all this information, I don't know if open source is the right word, but available to you and I so that we can become sort of space archaeologists ourselves and look at this data and be looking for areas that could be potential places for archaeological surveys or that could be gone in and excavated. And it's just this incredible thing that she's a space archaeologist, like combining the two things every kid wants to be when we grow up, and she's like a modern day Indiana Jones. It's just an incredible article, incredible person.
And that reminds me of the Hollow Earth theory. Have you heard of that?
No.
So I don't want to butcher it. Essentially, that there have been civilizations that have lived underneath or inside of the Earth through whether it be tunnel systems or there's big gaping space that people in the past have lived in or still live in, and that just struck a chord with talking about cities underneath deserts. That's crazy.
It won't be long before we have the technology from space to either rule out or rule in all kinds of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the second thing is, I love these, and I love the site because stories, storytelling is, I think, a universal capture of all of us, because that's where, I think everybody loves a good story. One of the best professors at UMass Amherst I ever had taught through storytelling. He is a clinical psychologist, and he would base his class lectures on the stories of his patients, and obviously taking out names and things like that, but he would just capture the whole class by storytelling. Even as I'm listening to you tell about these articles, they're stories, and they just bring back that wanderlust that has been so stolen from people nowadays.
This is something I wanted to get to earlier, but I forgot to when you were giving your introductions. You said you had a background in
architecture.
Yes, architecture. I was going to say archaeology, but yes, architecture. Have you heard of Earthships?
Actually, I'm planning on doing an article on Earthships, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then that was my next question. Do you guys have an article on them?
Coming up, actually. I'm going to plug them because I love them so much. They're called The Good Stuff. They're an incredible YouTube channel, and they do these sort of almost like mini documentaries. Not really, they're fun and interesting and engaging, but I love documentaries, so I think regular ones are fun and interesting and engaging. They go out to, I don't remember where it is exactly, but it is out west, and they go look at this sort of Earth ship. It's almost like a colony, I guess you would call it. It's looking from an architecture nerd standpoint, just looking at, even from an economic standpoint as well, just how little it costs to run these houses and how in tune they are to their environments. It's really incredible.
But and then the other thing is, too, the TED Talk, one of you talked about the TED Talk about school killing creativity. Have you heard of a man named John Taylor Gatto from New York? He was New York Teacher of the Year, I think in the late 90s or early 2000s. Have you ever heard about him? Yeah, because he is putting creativity back into education, and the students he's taught throughout his career swear by the guy. They love him. And some of his books, I haven't read his books, but I've listened to his lectures. He's got some good stuff. He's got some real good stuff on how we can change the education system to more meet the needs of our children.
I should say, this is also another way that we, get articles from people is that we...
Yeah, you definitely do want to have...
This is exactly how we get a lot of our articles.
Probably about, I'd say, 15-20% of our articles come from our users, our fans. They send us quick emails or they message us on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So you know they're going to enjoy them then.
Where do you see the website EWC, the whole project, going in the next 5 years? And does it sort of match expectations or where you would hope it will go? And
Well, our goal is just simply what we've spoken about through the whole last hour. We just want to change the dialogue about our planet. Our world in general is so amazing. If people had half the snapshot that Liesl and I have from doing this work for a year together, and then I have a year before that, people would wake up and spring out of their beds.
I do.
Yeah, I just can't wait to get to it. And so, I think our 5-year goal is pretty simple. We do the math on, there's 850 million English-speaking people on the planet that have access to the internet. And if our websites, from the beginning, our return rate on our website each day, our daily return visitors, is 18.2%. It's always been the same. Since we were just getting like 75 people a day, it was 18.2% return visitors.
wow.
So if 18.2% of 875 million are who our website would appeal to, and only 1% found us, only 1%, it still comes out to about 1.5 million people a day that would visit the website. Like, think about what a different world it would be if 1.5 million people every day on this planet knew what was possible.
I would have higher hope in this planet.
In our
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our future as a species.
So
We got a couple more questions. Yeah, we got a couple more questions, and we're gonna wrap this up. I got one question saved for the end, but
so for somebody, not saying me, but for somebody who goes on your site and sees this big project and so successful, what advice would you give or wisdom to anybody out there who has an idea or a passionate feeling about something and wants to manifest it in a similar way of which you have done through EWC?
I think it comes down to being real with people. Be real about what your vision is. Be real about how much you know. Be real about how much you don't know. Be real with people about your dreams of how big something can get.
Be real about your mistakes.
Be really real and own your mistakes.
Transparent. Oh, you have to just be super transparent.
And I think the more you tell people your story in a real way, it's again that story thing, the more people want to help you, the more people will get on board, the more people will see the light and the passion in your eyes and want to be a part of whatever it is that you're doing.
People succeed in groups.
Yeah, I think with the enthusiasm you girls have, it's not surprising how well the site's doing.
Thanks.
That's for sure. But with the continued growth of your site, in the hope to push for humanity's interest to shift, do you think news media or just the information that you share could become mainstream in the mass collective consciousness? And if you do, how do you think it will happen?
I think it goes back to the consumer being able to choose what they want. And I think if more people are empowered to choose stuff that brings them up instead of makes them feel fear or shame, then I think that media will have to change to suit that.
Yes, it's absolutely right.
I think the success of your site is a good example of how that's happening right now, too.
If we stop, it's all about counting clicks. You know that. There's not one quick click that any of us make on our devices that is not being counted.
Yeah.
Every single click we make on our devices is counted, and we will get more of what we click on. I mean, we count every click that people make on our website. We know where people are going on the website and where they aren't going. Believe me, that's happening in the media and in every single way we use media. So if you can just go with that one premise, then we will get what we click on is what we'll get more of. And if we start choosing to ignore the shame and the fear, and
Totally.
and choosing to click on and stay with and repeat, click on, stay with, and repeat the things that lift us up,
And make us a little bit smarter.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And make us a little bit smarter. We will have a better world. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I really love your point about being real, and being authentic is so huge because we want to deny these negative aspects of ourselves, and that sort of causes us to be in this state of fear and not wanting to show the sides of ourselves that we're not proud of, and the side of the world that we're not proud of. And then doing that creates this block where our true shine can't come out. And I think making the conscious effort to be authentic and stand within yourself and owning what you are, what you have done, is so crucial to manifesting what you're meant to manifest, or what you want to manifest.
So my final question, I read the article on your site, If I Could Change the World, and I liked it. And so my final question, which I want each one of us to answer, actually, I'll answer it. If you had one thing you could change tomorrow about the world, what would it be and why? And for me, the one thing I would change tomorrow would be to switch over from a monetary system to a resource-based system where the Earth's resources were seen as common heritage instead of personal property for everybody. And why would I want to see that change is because I think it would get rid of a lot of problems we see today because of the monetary system. And then, you go
Put on the spot. I did not know about this. One thing I could change in the world. So the world meaning the sort of existential system of interaction among us and where all that stuff is. You know, not the planet. Masks, man. And I think I talked about this to Linda back 2 years ago, this idea that we all walk around with these masks. Like, when you open up your closet, you're not seeing clothes, you're seeing masks. Which mask am I going to put on today? What am I going to hide, and what am I going to show people? You put on this mask and you put away truth. And what I would change the world is I would have people see these masks and to just burn them and to step into ourselves and being authentic and not being afraid to hide behind what we like, what we don't like. That would be my thing. Burn the masks.
I think if I could wake up tomorrow and have something change in the world, I think that it would be for people to embrace their curiosity a little bit more, to be unafraid to ask questions that make them uncomfortable and recognize that those questions lead them down alleys of knowledge that they never would have even interacted with, open them up to possibilities they would not know. I think that we all are scientists and artists in a certain way, because scientists and artists are both asking questions of our world and finding answers to them in different ways. And in the same way that we're all philosophers, too. You know, philosophers are asking questions of the world and searching for answers. And so if we embraced our curiosity about things in whatever field we were interested in, and especially in fields we weren't interested in, I think that would allow us all to sort of, it would change the dialogue about our world, because we would be more informed about one another's beliefs, about one another's understandings of how this world and this universe works. And so I think, that would be it. Would be to embrace our curiosity more.
And I'll have to say that mine kind of plays off this a lot, but what Liesl just said, I think if we all thought of ourselves as lifelong learners, I mean, more than thought of ourselves, if we all thought of the learning journey as to be never ending, I think people think there's like a time for learning, and then you just apply. And you know, and then you know, we just went to my senior in high school's graduation yesterday, and you know, there's a good number of kids who walked out of that auditorium, and that's going to be the end of their formal learning, and the end for some of them of their informal learning. They're just going to apply what their impulses for the rest of their life. They're just going to follow their impulses. So I guess I can be a little bit more clear and say, if I could change one thing tomorrow, it would be that people were less likely to follow their impulses and more likely to be able to stop and use what makes us human, which is our ability to think and reason past our animal impulses. And in that way, we would learn, we would be constantly learning throughout life. There would be no learning phase. It would be forever. We would be learning about ourselves and about the world and ignoring our impulses and going forward just smarter every day.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to say to the audience? How can people get involved with EWC? What's your site and how can people get there?
So, EverWideningCircles, if that's a hard name for people to remember when they go to look it up on the internet, I always want them to think about if they toss a pebble in the pond, the ever-widening circles would be what the result is. And that's really the way we live our lives. If we're angry at a coworker, if we snap at our children, if we cut somebody off in traffic, and conversely, if we pay somebody's, lack of change at the grocery store, or we pay a friend a compliment, or if we write a nice thank you note to a teacher that was a mentor that never knew we loved them, everything we do sends out ripples, and like a pebble in a pond, and that's what EverWideningCircles is really demonstrating, is that the more we think about the good things that are happening and the creative people and the insights that we all have to contribute, the more this world will improve. So EverWideningCircles, if it's hard to remember, just think about tossing your own pebbles in a pond from time to time, and that those positive radiating circles are going to go out to places you never imagined.
And then, so we're available on EverWideningCircles.com, Facebook.com/EverWideningCircles. And we post every day on Facebook whatever our article is. And then you can also subscribe on our website, and then you'll get an email a day just in your inbox of whatever our article of the day is, which is a great way to keep up with something. And a lot of people have told me that they love running to their desk at work because they know the EverWideningCircles email will be in there. And then they get to, start their day off on a little positive note.
And that's all the questions that we had prepped.
Great.
So just from the bottom of my heart, I love you both so much. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your professional and personal lives to sit down with us to do this. I'm ever so grateful, and I dearly miss our morning Kathmandu breakfast.
Oh, that was the breakfast place of the universe, wasn't it?
That roof.
Without stupa.
And again, I love you two from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to talk to you guys.
Very nice talking to you both.
Yeah, have a wonderful day.
Okay,
you too.
Bye-bye.
Well, folks, there it is. I think it went good for our first interview. There'll be more coming in the future, next week or this week, whichever one you want to call it, coming up. But I think what they're doing there, EverWideningCircles, is a wonderful thing, and hopefully we have more media outlets like that, or just sharing good information. We can get good information out more through all types of different outlets. Hopefully they keep popping up and keep doing well too.
EWC, EverWideningCircles.com. Get your dose of reality every Sunday, mid-afternoon. Uplift yourselves, open up your minds, break down your barriers, take off those masks, and get to raising the consciousness, people. That's what we're all about here. Please tune in next week. We got a wonderful show for you. God bless. Have a wonderful night.